Well, it's now time for our guest anchor segment. I've never done this, neither have you, so we're both new at this. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you,
Professor James Ole Kiyiapi. The last time we saw you, it was during the presidential debate in 2013.
And then, of course, during the last
elections.
campaigns,
Right.
and then the elections. Yeah.
How have you been?
I've been very well, very fine, and I've actually been around.
What have you been doing? We haven't seen much of you since the elections.
Much of last year, I took a bit of time to just reflect and relax, and took a sabbatical. It's called political sabbatical, which is a time to do a post-mortem of what happened and how did things go the way they did, and what could we have done better.
So what did you come out with from your sabbatical?
Well,
what went wrong?
It will come out. It will come out in my book, which is coming.
Oh, you have a book coming
I wanted to release the book last year, but then when I looked at it, because I had more time, so I decided to. It was initially a biography, so I decided to change it. So now it is an autobiography. I'm writing my own story. A lot of Kenyans did not really know who Kiyiapi was. A lot of Kenyans, remember I was called all kinds of names. I was called a project. I was called just a joker and all kinds of things.
Okay, so how did that make you feel now looking back? I mean, you've gone through this writing your book.
I just felt bad that a lot of people trivialized what was a very serious agenda. And unfortunately, I think even some in the media also didn't take me seriously. But I was a very serious candidate.
But why do you think you weren't taken seriously?
Because I was unconventional. I was not, that was not what Kenyans were used to. Kenyans were used to, mainstream politicians going out, using a lot of resources, money, mobilizing crowds. But mine was different. I was taking the message to the Kenyan people. I was talking to young people. I was talking to people directly.
Yeah.
And I thought that the people were ready for the issues rather than the drama, the political drama that characterizes Kenyan politics.
We were talking about this earlier. I told you drama is a very strong word.
But you see, I saw a lot of drama. And I really think that Kenyans need to take, the leadership question very seriously. Leadership is not just about the next election, next election. Leadership at the core is about the next generation.
Okay.
Thinking about young people, thinking about children, thinking about environment, thinking about all kinds of issues.
It sounds to me right now.
And that is what it was about.
I have to confess, Professor, it sounds to me right now as though you're campaigning. Are we going to see you in the next elections? Is it something you still want to do?
You can't write me
become
off.
president?
You can't write me off. I mean, when you start running, you don't just try and then quit. You don't quit the race. You run and run until you win.
So you're gonna keep running until you
win? Well, I'm not saying I'm going to run next one or any specific one, but I'm saying you pursue your goal until the end.
Okay, so a lot of people, I asked them to send me questions on Twitter when I said you were coming, and most people said, what does he think about the current Jubilee government? Do you think he would have made a better president than President Uhuru Kenyatta?
First of all, in all fairness, I was in government, and I knew, and I know that even in government when I was there, it takes a lot of time. It takes a long time for things in government to be realized. Usually, the incubation period for things to happen is maybe 1 year to 1.5. Then you begin to see results 3 years, 4 years down the road. So assuming this current government is putting serious programs in place, then we would begin to see this, say, by mid of this year, by end of this year. And therefore, that's why I'm a little generous and very sympathetic with them for now. And I will wait for a midterm evaluation. So, in all fairness, I think now, by midterm,
it's still early days.
It's still very early days. However, there are a few observations I would like to make. One, I think the government itself is also appearing like it's still campaigning. The campaign period is over. It's time for them to really roll their sleeves and get down to the serious business of the nation.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of issues that need very urgent attention, and it is not really necessary that we have to hear comments everywhere. I think people should really focus on the job at hand.
Which gets me back to my original question, which was, do you think you would have made a better president than President Uhuru Kenyatta?
No,
Oh, come on. You must have thought about this.
I think that I will leave it for Kenyans to judge when they make me president. But I think I would have done a lot
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Very confident.
Yeah, when they make me president. And because I think you also have to learn, I think President Uhuru Kenyatta has tried. When I look at the circumstances under which he took office, you know, the ICC issues, which was in the way, I would like to give him a benefit of doubt.
Okay.
But as I said, I will give a fair analysis and judgment.
You're being generous. You're being generous.
No, I'm being objective.
Okay.
I'm being objective.
We'll get back to that in a short.
I'm more harsher to the cabinet secretaries. The cabinet secretaries are behaving like they're drifting in government.
I don't want us to get into that right now. Please allow me to not get into that right now. Let's see how good of an anchor you are. I mean,
Yes.
you've been a teacher for many years.
Well, I'll
You're
try.
a professor.
Yes.
So let's see how you're able to address our audience who you can't see today. The intro for you is on Cam 2. That's the one which is labeled over there.
Yes.
And all you have to do is introduce yourself as though you were the anchor of this program.
Yes.
And knock it out of the ballpark.
Good evening, viewers. I'm Professor James Ole Kiyiapi, and although the laptop for schools project was supposed to be implemented in the first 100 days of the Jubilee administration, the wait has been long and agonizing one. Even as the government insists that the project is still on course, critics are pointing to the poor physical infrastructure in rural schools and one of the biggest reasons why the project should not be rushed. KTN's Carol Derry now looks at the dilemma of rural schools going digital, with several other basics still missing.
It was one of the biggest promises made by Jubilee prior to being elected into office more than a year ago. And from the onset, when Jubilee announced the pupils in Standard 1 would be supplied with laptops as part of the agenda rolled out during the launch of its manifesto, praise and criticism were dished out in equal measure. Some praised the coalition for its vision, while others insisted the project was not feasible and wondered if it was a priority in light of the numerous challenges in the Kenyan education sector.
We have embarked on a mission to connect all our primary schools to the national grid in a 15 billion shilling project. This will enable a success for the 17 billion shilling laptop project.
Sasa jameni, Kenya, 3 months, and we are shedding tears. Give us a break.
Never mind that the commencement of the project has been delayed for months now following tendering issues to the 24.6 billion shillings project. And while this might be executable in urban areas due to, say, availability of electricity and other logistics, the picture in the rural areas is rather different. It is perhaps a question of priority as other problems abound in the regions, problems that might hinder the smooth implementation of the laptop project. We visited a school in Nyeri County that is yet to bask in the joy of having electricity. This is Mount Kenya Salvation Primary School, less than 5 kilometers from Nyeri town. Yet for a long time they have had no electricity. It is the first thing we noted when we entered this Standard 1 classroom. These are would-be recipients of the said laptop.
Ni wakati ambao sasa hivi tunatarajia kwamba zitakuwa installed.
In some areas like Laikipia County, the situation is even worse in some places. At the Sikh Primary School in Doldol, Laikipia North, it was astonishing to see that pupils sit on stones. They say priority for the government would be to build decent classrooms and make learning comfortable fast. For these pupils, seats and desks would be a good start, never mind the laptops. And this is a picture replicated in many parts of the country, especially the perennially marginalized.
Watu wakifikiria mambo ya kuwa digital, sisi hata hatuko analog, tuko stone age. Kwa sababu hii ni maajabu. Kenya ikisherehekea miaka 50 tangu kupata uhuru, sisi tunasherehekea watoto kama hawa kukalia mawe.
The school laptop project may also not be viable without first addressing the pertinent issue of teachers' computer literacy across the country. Many teachers have had to go to computer colleges on their own initiative in order to learn basic computer skills.
Walimu wapelekwe refresher course ambao watakuwa trained vile ambavyo watakavyoweza kuwasaidia wale watoto.
Teachers have also been generally opposed to the project that is aimed at supplying 1.2 million laptops, saying that matters of their salaries are more important to the education sector. Ole Kiyiapi, who is an educationist and also the executive secretary of Kuppet Nyeri branch, says in spite of the challenges associated with poor infrastructure that might be a big hurdle in the rural areas, schools are eager to move on to this phase.
This is the time we can no longer wait. Our kids are not, again, ready to wait. They want to have those that project implemented before they go to classes standard 2.
He, however, says security for the laptops should be top priority, or else it will all be in vain.
We have the devolved funds. We can use that to supply the energy to the schools to build those strong rooms, so that even the parents can also have a commitment in the same project.
Well, the laptop project is indeed commendable, but the educationists that we've spoken to here in the rural areas feel that there are a few issues that need to be streamlined so that when the project finally kicks off, there will be minimal hitches and the children will well be on their way to being digital. Carol Derry for KTN in Nyeri.
From Nyeri, we come back to our guest anchor, Professor James Ole Kiyiapi. Now, you were in the Ministry of Education for a while. What do you think about the laptops project?
No, I think that I agree with the story. The principle of ICT in schools, it cannot be argued against by anybody. We need ICT in schools, but I think it is a question of how we implement.
How we implement.
And in my view, if the government would spend the first 2 years just upgrading the infrastructure, just to bring it to an acceptable level, and then now they can introduce ICT. And I would like it to be school-based rather than child-based. School-based means you put a computer lab in a school, which in any case you can secure.
Well, we already have that, but that's an argument for another day. It's good we have your basic opinion on this.
No, but
I really want to...
I think there's nothing wrong for the government to say our principle was to introduce ICT.
Okay.
So whether it is laptop or actual desktop,
okay,
or does not really matter. It is the ICT that is important.
I want us to move on because we'll run out of time otherwise. I want us to get to know who you are.
Yes.
From very humble beginnings, a very small village in an unknown location in this country.
Yes.
If you know of.
Yes.
And apparently you started primary school when you were 11 years old.
Yes, going to 12. I come
that
from...
was class 1.
Class 1, and then I jumped class 3, and then I went on like that. And but I came from Osupuko, that is in Transmara district, really an unknown place. But now it is known.
Now it's known.
And I was a Hearts boy.
Why did you start school so late? 11 years old is
because
really late.
I was looking after goats and cows, and my dad had, had to stagger labor. You send some kids to school, and then others have to remain behind to look after animals.
Yeah.
Then finally, I actually forced my way. I really wanted to go to school.
So how many siblings do you have?
Well, I have very many because I have half siblings and siblings. In my mother's house, we are only 6, and then 2 have passed on, but we are now 4 that are still living, and I'm the last born of my mother's of my mother. And then my dad had 4 wives, so I have about 24.
24 siblings.
Yeah, we are about 24. And at that time, polygamy in my place was fashionable.
Do you agree with polygamy? Would you take on a second wife?
No, for that time.
I'm asking you right now.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely
because I'm a Christian, I'm a very spiritual person, and I vowed and I married 1 wife. That's why I carry a ring.
And you're okay with that?
I'm terribly okay with that. I'm very comfortable with that.
Okay.
And even managing one sometimes is a really heavy responsibility, so I don't want to carry on much more than that.
Before we go to business, so you start off as this Hearts boy, and then you end up doing a PhD in a foreign country. How does that happen?
I was going to do a master's degree, and then I did very well in my first year. I scored A grades, and my professors gave me the option that I could finish my master's and come back home, and then there was no guarantee of scholarship.
Yeah.
Or if I was willing to transfer, which was a risk, then I would be guaranteed a PhD scholarship. So I opted to transfer directly from first year of master's without finishing it. Then I went straight to PhD.
Was it culture shock for you moving into a new country after, being...
Yeah, actually, yes. It was a bit of a culture shock, because one day I was, in a train, and then there was an old man who was standing and I was seated. So in Africa, you don't sit when old men are standing.
Right.
So I tried to stand up for the older man, but he really looked at me with a frowning face. It's like what do you think you are doing? I mean, it's unacceptable there. In Canada, you don't do such things. So I went back and took my seat. Yeah, and but very quickly I was a good learner. Very quickly I integrated. I mixed with the locals, and I was going to church. I was going to people's home for dinners and for lunch, and
then you fit right in.
Yeah, I fit in right in. And the best way to really learn about another culture is to live it and enjoy what people enjoy. If it is food, go and eat with them, go to their homes. And I think that way. And I got a lot of friends.
Yeah, because of
both Kenyans or Africans who are there, but also Canadians.
Okay. Well, what we enjoy to do here at KTN is hand over from one segment to another. And so I'm going to allow you to do that with Boni Tunya, who is my colleague and really great friend who is on business. Cam 2 is your camera. Go for it.
Good evening, Boni Tunya. What do you have in business today? Please bring it.
Good evening, Professor. I will bring it. Now, what we know is that today the CAK, or Communications Authority of Kenya, has licensed virtual service providers. And here's a trick. They will be operating on platforms developed by the other operators. Stay tuned.
All right, Professor James Ole Kiyiapi, time to say goodbye to the viewers. Did you enjoy your experience?
Yeah, it was lovely.
Do you think you can be an anchor now?
Yes, I think with a little bit more training, I can do it.
Okay.